Hello everyone, and welcome to our training on the STS manual editing site. This will cover the basics of getting up and running with the manual editor, and will hopefully give you most of what you need to know to get started. So first things first, you're going to log in. This is similar to our other site, except instead of logging in with your NetID, you'll log in with a specific username that you should, in theory, already have gotten from Pete or from Nati. So I'm going to enter mine. It's the admin account. I click login, and you'll see a dashboard. It will look sort of like this. You'll notice it's pretty similar to our other site with a few things missing, like the STS menu, etc. So everything that we do is basically going to be a manual or a trainer guide. Manuals are meant for public-facing consumption, so other student learners will be using those. The trainer guides are for internal use, and that's sort of the guide to the workshop that is being taught. So the manual is information about the topic and basically learning material for learners, and then the trainer guide is more about the teaching experience of a workshop that uses a given manual or topic. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click Manuals. And you'll see we have a list of different titles here that have all been created already. Your manual may or may not already exist. If it does, you can just go ahead and start editing that. If yours has not been created already, you can just go up to Add New Manual at the top. You will enter the title that will show up on the page. So this one is going to be Editing Manuals. That's going to be the title of this manual that I'm creating. So a couple of things to note. If you don't already have them on your screen, be sure to click the orange document overview button in the top left and the orange settings panel on the top right to make sure that you have those important pieces up. All right, before we begin actually editing content, let's take a look at what the final product will look like. So I'm going to go up to the Illustrator manual that has already been created. And so you'll notice we have a title at the top. There's an image right here, and then there is a table of contents. So if we keep scrolling down, this table of contents gets automatically generated by the page when we load it based on the structure of the page that's been created. So you'll see that we have this About Illustrator section, the Illustrator interface. Each of these is a related section of information about something related to our topic here. So you'll see with Illustrator, we have some practice files. We have some navigating the workspace sections here. Each of these is its own section, and each of these can collapse. So this can be nice if you're going through the manual. You can click on a subject, and it will collapse that one down, so you can kind of keep track of where you are as you are going through that. So that's just a little usability enhancement that we have there. Okay, so you can see the table of contents. If I click on one of these, it takes me down to that section, and I can see all of the elements within that. You'll notice that each of these sections has a purple or a blue line of text for whatever the heading of that section is. That is part of a very specific block that we'll look at right now. So every time we're adding something into our page, it will be a block, and those are all available in this black plus sign on the right-hand side. And if you click that, it shows you the 6 most recent blocks that you've used. And you'll notice at the top of mine, I have this STS manual section. I'm going to click that, and you'll notice that I now have a section on my screen. It has the blue title bar, and it now appears in my list view as well. So every time you create something on your page, it should be within one of these section containers there. And these sections should all be related in some way to some part of the topic that you are creating. So this one, for example, might be Introduction. I start typing in a block here, and this is my introduction to the manual I am creating. And I've just started typing in that block. By default, any text you enter is a paragraph block. If I hit enter or return, I get a new block, and you'll notice I now have the type / to choose a block, which I could do, or I can click the black plus sign. But by default, it is a paragraph, which I can see in the left-hand side over here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and preview this. If I go into the top right here, I'm going to click my little preview view, preview a new tab, and you'll see I have a new manual. You'll notice some psychedelic color banding over here, and that's because the gradient that we use for the background looks a little funny if it's a very, very short manual, but that's not something that we are likely going to have. Most of what we have is going to be longer here. All right, so you can see that the section we created with this introduction and the blue title bar and the text underneath it, that appears. And because we use our section, we automatically got the table of contents entry for that in our table of contents at the top of the manual. All right, so going back into the editor, everything that we do lives inside one of these sections. And then if we're going to be creating additional sections, the easiest way to do that is to simply click below a previous selected manual here. So you can click below and it will have the type to choose a block. If you wanted to, you could type / and then type STS, and you'll see we have the STS manual section. And you'll notice as the sections alternate, their title heading is either blue or purple, and that's just a visual touch so that it gives a little bit of variety to the presentation of the manual. So say I want to have another section here, and I will call this one Getting Started. I simply start typing. So you may notice as you're typing, a little bar in the top middle shows up with some different things you can select. So every block that you choose will have a different set of options that appear. So you'll see for my paragraph block, which I could tell has the little paragraph, and I can see paragraph is selected in the bar here. That has things like making them bold, changing the alignment. If I were to create a link, if I wanted to add a few of the other pieces, like maybe an inline code block for a Python manual, for example, or highlighting. Every block has different things you can choose from that. So if I go into my purple heading here, you'll notice one of the options here is what the level is for my heading. So something that's kind of important is that every section should only have one heading 2, and then below that we can use 3, 4, 5, or 6. We never use 1 because that's the one at the top of the page, and every page should really only have one heading on it for accessibility and web content standards. But so each of our subheadings is a heading 2, and then anything below that we can use within our block. So every section should have exactly one heading 2, but we can have multiple heading 3s. So say I type / and type heading. By default, it's going to try to be an H2. That's going to look weird. We always want to make sure to make that a heading 3. So how to get started with the editor. Okay, so I just added a little bit of content, and you can see this is an H3, this is a paragraph, and if I go back up to my preview and preview in a new tab, you'll notice I have my heading, I have my H3, which is how to get started, and you'll notice that H3 got added into our table of contents at the top. So the table of contents only grabs H2 and H3, and that should be enough for structuring the content that we make. So I'm going to go back over to my manual. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you'll see that we have the list view of everything that is in our document. So if we have a long list of these, it can be a little confusing where you are in any given section. So something you might want to do is right-click or two-finger click if you're on a laptop and rename the section headings to be whatever you want them to be. So I'm going to choose Introduction, and then I'm going to change this one to Getting Started. And you can see that the heading is immediately below each section, so we don't need this, but it can be helpful to at a glance see what the different sections of our manual are. And then you'll notice that if I want to choose a specific one of these, I can click on its name and that will appear. All right, so in addition to the options that appear when you click a particular block, you'll also notice there are some options on the right-hand side of the screen here in this block section. So this block section is going to be specific to whatever you have selected. So you'll notice it says I am in a heading, and I can change a couple of items with that. If I'm in the paragraph, I can choose some items there. If I were to add an image, that would look different. Basically, each of those is context specific for whatever you are editing. So if I wanted to change the color of this entire block of type, I could go over to my color selector and I can choose, for example, orange or purple. But if I only wanted to select part of that text, I would actually do that by clicking, dragging, and then adding a highlight. Excellent. You'll notice I can add bold, I can add italics, I could make things a link if I wanted to. Pretty typical stuff if you've worked with an editor like this in the past. Alrighty, so one of the other conventions you may use a lot as you are editing is using the add after or add before option. So if I wanted to add something in my section here, maybe I wanted to put an image immediately after my getting started. If I wanted to select and put something within this section, you'll notice that I can't really make that paragraph appear between them. If I wanted to add something after this current block, I could either hover my mouse over it until I see that line, or I can click the three dots and choose Add After. I'm going to go ahead and click Add After, and I want to add an image block, so I'm going to choose the plus sign. Image is one of my most recently selected items, and you'll notice that I have now a picker for my image. Very important, when you are uploading an image, the first time you choose, it will click Upload, and then you can choose one of the elements that you want to upload. So maybe I want to pull in this picture from Mortgage Hall. When I click Upload, that will automatically appear in my page, and I can delete that if I wanted to. So I could choose my three dots, go down to Delete. But if I have already uploaded that image, if I go to my Add After and I choose my image, if I've already uploaded that into the WordPress site, I'll actually click this Media Library, and you'll notice that the last thing that I've uploaded is going to be the first image that I see in our chooser here. So I'm going to choose mortgage. So I'm going to add some alt text here, and every image that we upload needs to have alt text for screen readers and for content searching. So I'm going to add a visual equivalent description here. So the second floor of Mortgage Hall showing the help desk. I've got that. I'll change the title to be Mortgage Hall, and then I'm going to add this into my document by hitting select. So once we've added images into our page here, you'll notice you get a very tiny preview. You see what the image is. And then if you click on the image, you can resize it. You can change the width and the height. If we have our block options open, you'll see we could choose a different resolution. So we could have it be smaller, medium, larger, etc. You'll notice if it's a smaller image, it's going to look gross. So I typically will use full size for the image that we have selected there, so that it will appear at a higher resolution so we can see all the detail. All right, so one of the other options you may use with images is the caption button here. So you'll notice that within image blocks, we have some different things we can choose. I could add a visual filter if I wanted to. These kind of don't look amazing, so I kind of don't ever use those, but we could. But the thing that you may want to use is a caption. So this block here with the three dots at the bottom adds a caption that will appear underneath the image that you have. So you can add that caption, and then that will appear on your page attached to the image. So if we go up to our preview again, you'll notice we get our image here, and then it shows us our caption immediately below that. Great. You'll also notice that this is not the full width image, and that's because this width has been set. If I want that to go back to being full width, I can just delete that, go back to auto, and we'll be in good shape. All right, a couple of other things to know about in our editor here. If you want to group multiple things together within one of these sections, there are some block types you can use for that. So I'm going to choose my last paragraph, three dots, add after, and say I want to create a group. I can just type slash and gr. It will let me choose a group. I'm going to choose one column just because that's what looks best for what I'm doing right now. And you'll notice some options on the right about using the inner blocks content width, setting the width and the height, etc. Most of those you don't need to do anything with, but a couple of things that you will need to know about that are not obvious and that aren't really listed anywhere in the interface are in this advanced section. So in the advanced section, you'll see we could add an HTML anchor. We don't really need those. But the additional CSS classes is one that you will be using. So these are kind of special tags that you can add that adds some formatting around this whatever block you have chosen. So say I wanted to have a good to know box up. I'm going to start typing the name for that tag, which is STS dash callout dash good to know, all one word. You'll notice as soon as I do that, I get a green border around my grouped blocks, and now I can add other things within them. So maybe I'll add an H3. And so I add my block, and you'll see that I have the group over in the list view on the left. I have my heading, my paragraph, and then when I choose that group, down in that advanced is where the STS callout good to know lives. All right, so that's most of what we need to know for our editor here. We're going to be done editing for this current edit session. So instead of hitting publish at the top, I'm going to hit save draft. And then when I save that draft, if I go back into my editor and I go to my manual site, you'll see that my editing manuals page that I just created is there and intact, and everything that I have created is still there waiting for me. We're not going to publish until we are ready for this to go live, and that is something that we'll do after talking with Pete and Nati, and we've finalized all the content that we're creating there. So we're going to save draft until we're ready to publish, and then we'll eventually publish that live. Something else that's good to know about those callout boxes is there are a few different versions of them. So I'm going to 3 dots click and duplicate this box, and you'll see this one is a good to know group. There is also a warning, which is bright red and has the warning label on there. There is also important. So important is orange, warning is red, good to know is green. If there are other versions of this that you think would be helpful, let me know, and we can make those pretty easily.